Hi, Davi here, and today we have a new episode in the art review series, and today we'll be checking out the work of Mao. So they do focus a lot on character design, character art, and I believe this is their OC, it looks like it. It's this blonde gyaru. I believe it's a Japanese term for like a Japanese woman who has blonde hair, who's sort of made up or has makeup on, like heavy makeup. Is it heavy makeup? And they usually have tan skin. It's sort of like a visual aesthetic in Japan, so I'm not sure if because it kind of fits that description, right? And they usually have that kind of lipstick too. But the tan skin and the blonde hair is definitely, and the makeup is definitely like a giveaway for this kind of appeal. I do like the look. It's so interesting to look at, but I believe I subscribed or followed them via because I've seen this artist way back, and I essentially just refound or I found their work again on my timeline. I believe it was this that got me, and this one too. Yeah, so their work is very painterly. If you do zoom in, you can still see like the edges; they're a bit rough, but I actually don't see a lot of texture. Maybe in the edges of the brush, but within the brush itself, it's mostly like an opaque brush. Um, and I think the painterliness of it, I like it. But it's also sketchy at the same time, right? Meaning it feels like it was quickly done. Obviously, these things take time, but what I mean is it just looks less like it's more direct, right? Like it's more about like a story and idea exploration, but it's also very presentable because you don't see a lot of wasteful strokes. What I mean by that is if you look at the silhouette, it's pretty clean. Like there's no things going beyond that. I mean, yeah, there are some sketchy lines here and there, but it's mostly just clean on the silhouette. But everything within is pretty. It can get kind of painterly, a bit impressionistic sometimes. So this one's fan art of I think Jujutsu Kaisen, and for most of the background, it's left as white. So it's really just character focused. Even if they're sitting down, they're not even drawing like where they're sitting. And you don't have to actually draw the background like this one. Like this one's actually already kind of like it takes extra effort to be able to like draw the ground. But you don't have to. I've seen artists who draw this kind of viewpoint, but they don't even draw the ground because you don't have to, you know. And that's kind of the freedom with art. You don't have to be complete, into everything. Just do the thing you want. And in this case, this one's a Chainsaw Man character art, but it's also from Jujutsu Kaisen. Like on the left hand side, you can see the chainsaw like devil dog thing, and on the right hand side, you do see what's her name again? Yuji? Is it Yuji? And I think they're doing like a character switch or something. You can tell by the hair color. But yeah, I just like the sketchy vibe of it. Like let's go back to the gyaru because I wanna I'm not sure if there's a word for it like not upper class but more like mean girl type of vibe. Oh, they did draw the ground for this one. I do like it, but again, look at how painted it is. You can tell. Let me just zoom in here. Can you zoom in? Right? It does get like you can really see the painterly side of everything once you do zoom in. Oh, I think the brush they use is more of a square brush. But again, you don't see any like canvas texture, rough texture, or any of that stuff when they're painting. Basically, what that means is when they're painting it heavily, it just ends up being like a solid sort of flat, right? So it's almost like it's similar to gouache painting in a way. And in the edges, you do see those strokes going back and forth, right? Erasing. So they do leave that in. They're not trying to be clean in the edges. So that's something I've noticed. The edges aren't always clean, even when it comes to like the shadows or when they're doing this sort of Terminator line. It's not always. It's a bit rough, right? Even the line work. It's not really line work. It's I mean, it's a form of line work. You can tell because it's black, right? But on some parts they do paint over those lines, but for the most part, they're okay with leaving that in. So let me just see others. I did like this one, right? Let me zoom in here. The thing is, how do you choose when to paint over those black lines and when to keep it? You know, there are artists who decide to color that black line, and they try to relate or make that color close to the base color underneath. Right. For example, if the skin is brown, you make the black line kind of a dark brown. But in this case, they do leave those black lines in, and you'll notice in some parts it does disappear. Right? Like it does get thinner and thinner. I'm assuming because you do eventually paint over it. But I'm surprised if you do zoom in, you will be surprised with how much black like lines are being left in. Do you see this part right here with the folds? Look at how they're not really blending it to the max. And I think it's because they're not painting it from like this level, they're painting it zoomed out. For example, if you look at artists like this, there's a concept artist named Anthony Jones. If you look at his work, it's so like freaking refined. But once you zoom in, you will really see his brushstrokes, and it's intentional because he always mentions that, or his advice is to not zoom in. So because of that constant habit of his, he's able to just get this refined look from that from one view, from this zoomed out view where you see the whole piece. So he doesn't waste time having to go in and really render things, because there are art pieces, illustrations out there that when you do zoom in, it's like its own illustration. For example, this could be, right, let's say in this zoomed version, this could be its own like wallpaper. So I guess it makes sense why some people or why some artists do that, because they're trying to maximize the output of that illustration, meaning it can be a print, it can be a poster, it can be a sticker, a wallpaper. So it has, or some kind of like t-shirt print or something, or a bag print. So it's meant to go really far in terms of the output. But for some illustrations like this one, I think they just try to, like, it's really for like one thing, and I think it's for digital media consumption. So obviously with this kind of approach, you're gonna be able to produce a lot of content, and I think it's just more fun because there's less pressure to really like go in deep and just render things out, right? I'm surprised with the hair. If you look at the hair, it's mostly flat. You don't see the whole. You know, in anime art, they try to render like each sort of chunk of hair. In this one, it's mostly like a silhouette. I am liking the painterly vibes, because it's, you know, I do have a bias towards painting, because it just feels, oh, they did draw a little bit of the floor, so there's a kind of a fisheye effect happening here. Interesting. Let me just zoom in. I want to see more. So this is the other character. Looks like they're best friends. Long nails. I think would this be classified as a gyaru as well? Oh, look at this one. These like strokes here. I think they're supposed to be like keychains. And she has, what is this? I'm not sure what that is. A bag? Or it's in her bag. It's a very direct approach. You will see this a lot too with like editorial illustrations, especially the more painterly types. It feels like they're breaking rules because they're not really worried about the 3D aspect of things. They just try to make it look cool in 2D. I'm not saying they don't have an understanding of like how forms work in like a 3D space, but you do what works or what looks good, right? And if you're trying to render something, like add some like values or shadows, you do enough to like make it convincing, but that's pretty much it. I mean, look at how the shadows were done here, right? With the white strand, they just painted the gray in, right? You don't have to like create like a layer for the whites and then you make another layer for the shadows. It's a very direct approach, and I like it. So that does add to the uncleanliness. Now I know artists who don't like to do this because obviously it's, you know, people have different types or different approaches, but this one just seems a lot more ballsy, more confident, and yeah, look at that, right? So the shoes is just one value for the blue part, one value for the other part, and then black, and then that's it. They don't have much hue variety. They just, for example, for the skin is pretty much just one thing. The sweater here, the pants, it's just one major color with different values. But that's it. So I think that helps too with the simplification. You're not worried about, like hue variety and stuff like that. And even the brush variety isn't even that strong. It's just like one painterly brush and maybe like one texture brush. I do see a little bit of texture, but it's not that common. You'll see it too in the line work. It's kind of like a crayon looking thing. I did see it in the bag, this keychain. You can see a little bit of those textures there. But you can tell their brush use is quite limited. A bit of texture over here, a bit of texture over in this sort of katana sword thing for the highlights. So it does have a slight bit of grit because of that. So I think that helps with the natural effect. In that it makes the painting look a little more natural or done traditionally, right? Because the more opaque it is, for example, if you look at the floor, because there's not much like breakage happening, it does look a little more digital. But the moment you add a bit of textures, in the edges, and if your edges look like this, where it's not super clean, right, where you see a bunch of strokes, sort of fighting in a way between the light and the dark, it's gonna look a little more natural, right? More manually done. Okay, I'm spending too much time on this specific piece. This is Makima. I'm not sure who the other girl is. I've only seen the anime, so forget. Oh, is there a mixer brush being used? I do see some blending / mixer brushes being used, especially for the character in red or wearing the red sweater. But if you look at the hands of both of these people, you will still see that sort of line. It's not really line work, but there's a line around the silhouette, around the fingers, the hands, the arms, pretty much everywhere. Even for the pants, the one wearing red, you can still see a lot of the lines. Now for Makima, the one with the red head or with the red hair, the taller one, if you look at the pants, there's no I can't really see the lines anymore. Maybe it's because they're too far back or they're in shadow too much, but yeah, I just find it interesting. They leave a lot of the black lines in. This one's more painted. You do see the black lines, but it's mostly around like the neck, the face. But it's in the silhouette. But that's it. Let's go further back down. Oh, that's it. Armpit. So yeah, I guess they're really more of a painter person because even in their in these works, you have. Let me just zoom in. I like this one. Look at that. Oh, look at these folds here. Even the shoes look great. Damn. Yeah. Limit yourself to at least, I think they're using just one, maybe their favorite brush or something. Oh, you can tell this brush is different. It's more of like it looks like it's this, like it doesn't really have texture. So it looks like a graffiti sort of thing, like a marker sort of brush. Even this box looks well painted. So I do see a bit of color variation here. I'm not sure what it's supposed to mean, but yeah, I'm liking the textures. It's very minimal. Even if you zoom out, you can still see a little bit of it, but you will see it a lot more in the edges. I do like it. Yeah, it is kind of clean in that it's very gouache, Even though you'll see sometimes they'll use a blending brush or a mixer brush, it's not very common. Look at how in this darker side, or in the interior of the jacket here, of this coat, it's not even painted. It's basically like a flat color, right? Or it's a bunch of flats with some like indication of the buttons, but that's it. And it kind of makes sense. You have to pick one side to render more. For example, it's either going to be the light side or the shadow side. In this case, they chose to render more the light side. For example, in places in shadow, you can just leave it as like one major shape. For example, if you look at the hair of this blondie, the shadow is pretty much just one shape. But to be fair, even the light areas, it's also one shape. But look at how they bolden the silhouette with the black line as well. Yeah, they're not really they don't really color it. I've noticed that, so I think that's a feature in their style, leaving the black lines in, having that painterly approach to their artwork. Right, the whole character has this bold sort of line, but it isn't that much thick than the black lines inside, because I know artists who like bolden the exterior silhouette line and then make every line within that silhouette a bit thinner, but I don't really see that. It's a bit consistent, whether it's on the outside or on the inside. It's about the same ish thickness, and their line work is not done with like a G pen or with the pencil. It's almost as if it was done with the same brush used for painting, but just a smaller one. Right? If you look at the coat here, the jacket, look at how the line work is also painterly. So maybe that's a thing in their style. Painterly black lines. Right? Look at that. I like the folds. Look at this whole shadow thing here. It's just one shape. Interesting. It helps you save time too. I'm not sure why. What's the explanation why this edge is a bit lighter? Well, maybe it's a Terminator line, right? I guess I'm just used to seeing it on skin, but I've been focusing a lot on characters, so I guess this applies everywhere, even if it's like shadow being casted on the ground, right? Same thing here. Oh, even the sign on the back, maybe it's some kind of logo. Even the 66 sort of mark here or tag with the skull. It looks so cool, right? So maybe this is the brush you're using. It's so nice. Look at that. But again, if you look at the face, they're very careful with rendering it. For example, this one, most of her face is not even rendered. It's just one flat color, right? If you look at the ears and a part of her forehead or the side of her face, the top part anyway, there's no rendering. It's just one shadow color. And then right after that, it's the lighter side of her face. And that's it. There's no rendering, no value variation. Same thing for this guy. Even the nose is like a triangle. That's a very complimentary thing. Look at how the design of like the jackets, even the ripped sort of shorts here, the design elements within the jacket. I'm not. I forgot what this jacket is called. Is it like a jock? You know, how athletes tend to wear this. It's kind of like their uniform or something. Like a Christ, I forgot the name, but yeah, there's a lot of like design elements. A lot of even the way it's painted. There's a lot of value variation there. Lots of textures, but the moment you hit like the skin or face, it's just clean. So that contrast, it's a good match. Look at that. So that's it for this art review of Mao. I'm very glad I was able to finally get to their work because it has been a while. Like I knew this artist was on my list, or it was in one of my open tabs or in my bookmark somewhere. But I do have a lot of artists that I like or that I want to talk about. Oh, is this a chibi? These types of exercises help too because it helps you break down like what makes the character that character, even if you can explain or show that character in a more simplified form. Then it means you have a solid design down. So you'll notice like the best character artists, they tend to know how to create a chibi version, like a cartoonized version of their own character, right? Like a smaller version or a chibi. Oh, I believe this is the same characters, but they're gender bended. The Gyarus, but guy form. Kinda hot. Damn. Kawaii. Look at that. You can tell by the hair design, the what they're wearing, the sword, right? Even the facial expression, the attitude. Although what's missing is the nails. Well, obviously, maybe they're. But again, look at the black lines. Yeah, kind of hot. This one's a new character, maybe. Diva. Oh, I love those pants. Very baggy pants, long hair. Oh God, reminds me a little bit of that Miku character. So here we have the Gyaru. It's the same one, but there it's like raining. This one she seems more serious, and you have like a close-up version, right? You're seeing her from above. She does seem a bit more demonic in this one. Or not demonic, but more like ugh. Well, not ugh, but like she's serious, right? Like she's mean, but she's like hot mean. Now this one, she's just pissed as hell, but it's so hot. Wait, she does seem more mature here than the other ones. Like this one. She seems more fun or more on the move, right? like young a little bit, but as we progress, she does get a little more serious for some reason, or more mature. Or maybe it's because we're just closer to the character, like we can see, or we're just closer to her face, right? So, but yeah. But the style is the same. You can still see the black lines, very painterly, some textures here and there, but it's very minimal. Very painterly approach, right? Look at that. So that's it for this art review of Mao. I hope you enjoyed their work, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye!